The Western private military contractors are elite for-hire mercenaries, focusing heavily on high-speed, light vehicles, CAS helicopters, and highly adaptable and strong boots-on-the-ground operators, perfect for engaging in head-to-head firefights with enemy infantry, as well as using irregular warfare to conduct ambushes, cut off enemy logistics, and destroy enemy armor. But many players seem to never use the WPMC to their full potential. So today, I'm going to tell you why you suck with the WPMC, how to best utilize the WPMC's new weapons and vehicles, teach you new tactics and strategies, and weave that into an overall doctrine for how this faction should be played. But first, let me ask you a question. Are you tired of archaic, simplistic, and boring armor fights in games? Do you long for a game bold enough to give you realistic and strategic tank-on-tank violence? Have you ever looked at a badass tank and thought, wow, I wish I could drive that? Well, let all your dreams come true with the sponsor of today's video, World of Tanks. Fight and conquer with over 600 unique armored vehicles from 11 different nations, each vehicle meticulously designed and balanced to give the player the most realistic, fun, and interesting experience possible. Play World of Tanks now using the link in the description and use the invite code COMBAT to receive the historic Cromwell B British Premium Medium Tank, 250,000 credits, and 7 days of premium access, as well as 3 rental tanks you can use for 10 battles each. The legendary Tiger 131 German heavy tank, the T-78 American tank destroyer, and the Type 64 Chinese premium light tank. And for returning players, World of Tanks welcomes you back with open arms with a free 3 days of premium access, the 2D style bargain camouflage, a free 7 days with the premium tank Centurion Mark V, or if you already own the Centurion, 100,000 credit compensation instead. And for any veteran of the US or Canadian Armed Forces, World of Tanks salutes you with the World of Tanks Salute Program. Register or log on now, and both new and existing veterans can get the premium Tier 6 Thunderbolt medium tank for free. Claim all your free stuff now. Click the link in the description, sign up, and use the invite code COMBAT and conquer your enemies. See you on the battlefield, tanker. Now back to the video. First, let's talk about the WPMC's Infantry. This faction excels in small arms versatility and quite frankly has the best infantry kits in squad, due to their vast amount of kits, specially fitted for any tactical situation you can think of. This runs contrary to most other factions, which normally rely on one staple weapon for most of their classes, which effectively marries that faction to the weapon with all its advantages and drawbacks. The US Army's M4 carbine has easy handling and low recoil, and is great for short to medium range fighting. The drawbacks, however, are its high damage drop-off at range, making the army suffer on maps with wide open spaces such as Tallil outskirts. The WPMC, on the other hand, sports a smorgasbord of SMGs, carbines, rifles, and DMRs, giving the WPMC multiple weapons for any given situation. Operators should opt toward SMGs and carbines like the MP5, M4 Wormhole, or AK-101 for urban and close quarters fighting on maps like Fallujah, and prioritize DMRs and battle rifles like the M14 on maps with long lines of sight like Lashkar Valley or Tallil outskirts. I won't be covering every weapon here, but some weapons that stand out are the M14, which seemingly suffers from only half the recoil a battle rifle usually has, but retains a battle rifle's damage and damage drop-off, making it the best battle rifle in the game. The MP5 SMG is capable as long as you can hit your headshots or are close to the enemy. Lastly, there used to be no difference between the M4 Simon offense and its brothers, the M4 and the M16. But as of patch 8.2, the M4 Simon offense will perform better in close quarters, but weaker at range than other rifles. Their automatic rifleman kit continues the trend of adaptability by giving you the choice of a high suppressive potential, heavier saw, and a lighter, more mobile automatic rifle. The saw would be better for a defensive position, holding off enemy attacks and walking down lines of sight, but there have been times where I had been on the attack with my squad and wanted to provide suppressive fire as my squad moves. That was not an option with the saw, but with the M27 CMAG it would have. Whereas most factions are simply handed their automatic rifle, the WPMC gets to choose based on the tactical situation. Their Grenadier kits are among the strongest in the game as well. The MKE-MGL is a 6-round semi-automatic grenade launcher. Previously only available to the Turks, the MGL gives you 2 more fragmentation grenades than a Grenadier usually gets, with 12 grenade rounds compared to the usual 10. The other variant of the Grenadier gets more fragmentation and smoke rounds than the traditional Grenadier, with a whopping 14 fragmentation rounds compared to 10, as well as 6 smoke rounds, but in turn takes longer to use as you must switch to a completely different weapon, load, and then fire. It therefore allows WPMC Grenadiers to more quickly provide massive amounts of fire support, whether in response to contact or to shell an area before a push. It also comes with 12 smoke rounds loaded 6 at a time. That is brilliant for smoking entire areas remarkably quickly. The reload is fairly long, but well worth the wait when you're dishing out up to 6 grenades at a time. On a macro level, this means the WPMC will have more available grenades on hand to clear buildings, vegetation, and to suppress and destroy enemy positions. If you're facing a WPMC squad, don't wait for them to run out of grenades. They simply won't. All in all, the WPMC's Grenadier kits further amplify their edge in infantry firefights. I found their unique class, the Raider kit, to be quite lacking. It is essentially an MP5 SMG with 3 grenades. This also takes up one of the squad's precious 4 fire support slots. You could just as easily pick the Rifleman kit with an MP5, put down your ammo bag, and spam grenades that way, while still being able to supply your teammates and SL. Do not waste your time with this class. Their marksman kits are quite strong as well. As much as I'd rather you pick any other fire support role, the fact that you can be aggressive in close, medium, and long ranges with a 6x9 scope M4 Wormpole, a 6x9 scope M14, or a 6-scope HK417 means that your squad can more effectively engage enemies at any range, and proves that the WPMC infantry can excel even on maps with long lines of sight. Considering their lack of heavy armor, the WPMC's AT kits must be strong, and their lat kits largely fit the bill, with a choice between 2 Laws or 1 AT4. Their hat kits follow through as well, with both the hat variants getting Carl Gustavs with 2 heats and 1 tandem. This is sorely needed as, again, infantry will be making up the majority of the WPMC's AT capabilities. The Combat Engineer is a first of its kind. It comes with 3 anti-tank mines, sandbags, and barbed wire, as well as a C4 that is activated by a remote detonator rather than a traditional timer. This allows the Combat Engineer to perform a variety of roles, whether it's mining important roads, fortifying an area with sandbags and barbed wire, or embracing your inner saboteur and going fob hunting. You can also try to set up traps for enemies to run into, although if you're trying to ambush a vehicle, keep in mind the delay.
There's a delay. There's a delay. There's a delay.
Realistically, the most efficient thing you can do with this new toy is fob hunting. This is because C4s are not efficient at destroying vehicles. You cannot attach the C4 to any vehicles, so vehicles will take less damage from the C4. For example, it took me 2 C4 to blow up 1 light vehicle. Additionally, you can place up to 3 C4 at a time, which isn't going to do much to any heavy armor. And that's if you manage to get the timing right and the vehicle doesn't just drive away unharmed. Imagine spending all that time setting up your trap and waiting just to forget about a delay. Couldn't be me. Overall, due to the versatility, adaptability, and overall strength of their infantry kits, this faction will dominate in infantry firefights no matter the combat environment. The WPMC's infantry kits are one of their biggest advantages, and must therefore be exploited as much as possible. As a squad leader, you should exploit this by attempting to isolate enemy infantry away from their supporting vehicles. As an operator, you should choose your kit based on the environment you find yourself in, and tailor your movement techniques to best exploit your weapon's advantages. The vehicles of the WPMC are their Achilles heel, specifically their heavy armor department. For their MBT, they have the ancient M60T, easily penetratable from the front by any modern tank. And for their infantry fighting vehicles, well, there are none. Not having heavy armor means the WPMC must rely almost exclusively on their infantry-based anti-tank weaponry, with the exception of some ATGM-mounted vehicles to destroy enemy armor. It also means that the enemy will have essentially free reign to leverage their vehicles against the WPMC's well-equipped infantry right from game start. This is as bad as it sounds. For all of the variety of their kits, their mobile spawn vehicle, their CAS helicopter, this is the biggest hurdle for the WPMC, and will be the reason they lose most of the time. The longer the enemy are allowed to leverage their IFVs and superior MBTs against the WPMC's infantry, the more likely a defeat will be for the WPMC. That said, the WPMC's highest priority should be to delay, disable, and ultimately destroy the enemy's heavy armor. But how can we defeat the enemy armor without any heavy armor ourselves, you might ask? Well, dear viewer, this is where the WPMC's strong anti-tank infantry and fast vehicles come into play. The most effective way of dealing with heavy armor for the WPMC is having roaming, dedicated anti-tank squads, ideally in an anti-tank guided missile mounted vehicle, but if not possible, at least an SUV riding around, constantly seeking to ambush enemy vehicles. Initially, these squads can set up on popular roads enemies might go down, and later on, relying on callouts from your helis and wider team, should actually chase down and eliminate enemy vehicles. This type of squad is an absolute necessity to have against any conventional faction. I know that the only type of squads you see nowadays are 3-man armor squads or 9-man infantry squads, but playing that way is going to lead the WPMC to ruin. You must have squads that actually seek out and destroy enemy vehicles. Otherwise, you essentially give all the momentum to the enemy team, and leave it up to your hat players to simply be in the right place at the right time, as well as relying on them to actually have the skill to destroy armor. This is simply something you do not want to leave to chance. The Mobile Spawn Vehicle, or MSV for short, is a first of its kind. This is a vehicle that, when you turn the engine off, turns into a team-wide spawn. This is an incredibly powerful tool. To create a team-wide spawn, you usually have to drive a truck somewhere safe, place a radio, and dig up a fob, all without getting discovered. And once it is discovered, you can guarantee that the hab won't last very long. But with the MSV, you can simply turn off the engine and soon you'll have a new team-wide spawn up. It can be destroyed by as little as a heavy machine gun, so you're going to want to hide the MSV as best as you can. When enemies get too close, you can simply spawn on it, get in, and drive to a more safe area. This is also a great tool for a new tactic I call rally planting. Basically, communicate with the infantry squads while you're driving the MSV to spawn on your vehicle with their squad. Drive nearby the enemy objective, turn the engine off, allow that squad to spawn in and drop their rally, then fire the engine back up, and do it all again from a different side of the enemy objective. This will allow your team to spawn shift extremely fast and surround the enemy objective, or likewise spawn shift to defend a wavering defensive objective. Therefore, the MSV is easily the WPMC's greatest asset as a literal moving fob. It does have a spawn timer of 15 minutes if destroyed, and costs 20 tickets as well, so you definitely don't want to charge into hell with these things. Instead, a squad leader, perhaps the commander, should be dedicated to driving these things around to plant fobs and spawn shift the team to either attack or defend their objectives. Always err on the side of caution when you're driving the MSV around, and keep in mind the MSV is quite loud for an APC. One good hit from a LAT or a spot from a light vehicle is all it takes to take this extremely powerful asset out of the game. The WPMC's logistics is largely restricted to the ground. They of course come with your standard Logi trucks, but they also get Logi Techies, allowing them to rotate easier on large maps. This plays into the doctrine of speed and mobility from the WPMC. Okay, the Loach CAS heli isn't the only heli the WPMC have. They also get a Loach Scout heli. Despite the name, this does not come with the scout camera like the USMC's heli. It can also carry up to 3 passengers, so this heli should be used solely for recon and transporting the odd lost blueberry back to somewhere relevant. The Raven is the WPMC's first real non-CAS heli, but can only load 800 supplies at a time, compared to most other helis' usual 900 supplies. Even so, this is just enough for a spawn bunker, ammo crate, and 200 ammo. Another thing that the WPMC is great at is disrupting enemy logistics, and this is where we must talk about the Loach. The Loach CAS helicopter, while extremely vulnerable, is incredibly fast and comes equipped with a minigun, rockets, and smoke rockets. If you're ever playing against the WPMC, God help you if there is a competent pilot on their Loach, and you're not protecting your logistics vehicles. They will not hesitate to strafe and destroy logistics vehicles filled with infantry and fly off before any retaliation can be dished out. Losing a logistics vehicle and an entire squad right at the beginning of the game is a massive handicap in and of itself, and that's something the Loach CAS heli of the WPMC should always prioritize. The Loach is not something you destroy vehicles or generally even provide fire support with. Its rockets are few, and its minigun can't pin anything beyond a logi truck. It does, however, come equipped with some smoke rockets to blind enemies, which can come in handy to blind enemy vehicles or to prep an area before an assault. And in niche situations, it can be appropriate to strafe enemy positions quickly and then get out of dodge. But for the most part, this is a weapon built for harassing enemy logistics and reconnaissance. As a Loach CAS pilot, you should be constantly in the back lines, looking for enemy logistics trucks going in and out of their main, then striking once the logi trucks are alone and unprotected. The Loach can even go after enemy helicopters. While MI8s and Blackhawks are pretty beefy and don't seem to take much damage against miniguns, a skilled pilot should have no trouble harassing the helicopter back to its main. With the right pilot, the Loach can cause massive delays to enemy logistics that can snowball the WPMC to victory. However, as I said before, the Loach is extremely vulnerable. It only takes a couple rounds from a heavy machine gun to bring it down, and it costs 15 tickets and a long respawn timer of 15 minutes to come back up. So, and this might frustrate some people, do not touch the Loach unless you are a skilled pilot. I mean it. No. Bad. Go and fly all the other helis in the game before you even consider touching it. A good Loach pilot can win you the game. A bad Loach pilot can cost you dozens of tickets and deprive your team of one of its most important assets. The WPMC's advantage continues with the SUVs. Quite simply, these vehicles are some of the fastest vehicles in the game and have ungodly good handling and traction. Seriously, this thing is a mountain goat. I find myself easily scaling mountains. A skilled driver can easily beat the enemy team to the middle of the map and even beyond, depending on the enemy. It also has great troop capacity, able to drive up to 10 operators around at a time. This is great for two reasons. One, at the match start, the WPMC will be able to get more troops where they need to be faster than the enemy will. To prove it, I drove a logistics truck on Jensen's range to the test track while timing myself. The result was 1 minute and 33 seconds. Compare that to the SUV, using an identical route only took 54 seconds in comparison, and that's with me spinning out. By the time an enemy logi drives up to your midpoint, the WPMC should already be dismounted, spread out, and ready to receive them, depending on how many times you spin out and how many trees you hit on the way there, of course. Later on in the match, you can easily pile in your entire squad and reposition them quickly and efficiently. You can quickly pile up your squad in your SUV and go on the flank, finding the enemy fob and digging it down. Overall, the WPMC will always have an advantage in mobility, able to quickly and efficiently transport large groups of infantry around the map with the famous soccer mom vans. Secondly, they make great ambushing vehicles. The SUVs are incredibly fast and can easily catch up and mow down entire trucks full of infantry, and are also perfectly suited for hit and run attacks against enemy infantry. Crest a hill, go full speed while blasting the minigun at an enemy position, then duck behind cover and prepare for another drive-by. I strongly recommend for every infantry squad to have at least one of these SUVs attached to them at all times. As for the SUV's armor, the glass will protect the passengers from small arms fire, but an HMG or bigger is going to pin right through. The vehicle itself will take cold damage to small arms fire and will blow up surprisingly quickly if a squad of infantry opens up on it. Lastly, the wheels are not bulletproof and will blow out with just a couple rounds from a carbine. All said, the SUV is great for the reasons listed above, but this is a relatively fragile light vehicle and cannot tank much at all before meeting its end, so try not to overstay your welcome with this vehicle. The SUV isn't the only light vehicle the WPMC has. They also have plenty of technicals and Humvees mounted with everything from miniguns and HMGs to ATGM vehicles. I've heard the WPMC being described as a Western insurgents, and for most of their light vehicle section, I definitely get that impression. These light vehicles align seamlessly with the WPMC's overall doctrine of irregular warfare and harassment. Use these technicals to hunt the respective enemies, tow Humvees for enemy vehicles, miniguns for fire support and logistics harassment, and HMGs for everything in between. One light vehicle that stands out is the M1117 Armored Security Vehicle, mounted with the M2A1 Browning Heavy Machine Gun and the Mark 19 Automatic Grenade Launcher. This is a very good fire support vehicle that has excellent speed, allowing it to quickly get to an area, provide fire support, and get out of dodge before any retaliation can be dished out. As of patch 8.2, the WPMC's buildable mortars have been taken away from them, but in turn, they gain 2 mortar technicals in every single battle group. This is actually a big deal. Mortars are infamously annoying to man in squad because the moment you fire one, enemies are going to be running toward your location trying to kill you. Delegating indirect fire support to mobile mortar trucks allows you to reposition after firing easily, and you don't even have to risk building a fob and resupplying it. The WPMC's commander assets are a refreshing mix of Insurgent and Blue 4 assets, and come with one of the best combos a commander can have. Like the Insurgents and Irregular Militia, you gain access to the drone. Before you ask, no, you cannot strap the remotely detonated C4 to it. However, the drone is still the best recon tool in the game, and should be used to its full potential when available. This drone synergizes well with the WPMC's F-16 Close Air Support Strike. A smart commander should use the drone to seek out the enemy armor, wait till they stop, then mark the vehicle for an airstrike using the drone, then sit back and watch the fireworks. For a faction that is so desperate to destroy the enemy's armor, this is a godsend, and it should be one of the commander's top priorities to whittle the enemy armor down using this tactic. When your F-16 is on cooldown, you should spend the rest of your drone's life looking for enemy fobs, an equally, if not more important task. And lastly, we can't expect to have the best of both worlds. Instead of the more powerful artillery barrages of Blue 4 factions, we are equipped with the heavy mortar barrage, which is an effective downgrade in destructive potential. However, it still serves the same role as the artillery barrage, namely to disable and destroy enemy fobs and soften up the enemy for a push. Overall, due to the lethal combo of the airstrike plus drone, I would dare to say the WPMC's commander assets are the best in the game, and sorely needed for such an armorless faction. Let's point out something I feel isn't given enough attention: the minigun. The minigun is an elusive beast. It may seem like it does absolutely no damage in some cases, and feel like an absolute god weapon in others. Nevertheless, after some testing, here is my findings. As far as penetration goes, the minigun can obliterate unarmored vehicles and, in theory, helis extremely quickly. The difficulty with helis is that they are fairly difficult to hit in the sky, but if one strays too close to a minigun, that may be their last flyby. As for anything armored, the minigun can destroy the wheels off of armored vehicles fairly quickly, and can destroy some, but not all, light vehicle engine blocks. The exceptions are the British LPPV, MRAPs, Humvees, and the Aussie Bushmaster. Every other light vehicle, you should be able to penetrate the engine block, but not the hull. This feels like some kind of bug. Why am I able to penetrate a BRDM's engine block, but not a Humvee's? Anyway, as of patch 8.2, this is how it is. So, as a general rule, with the minigun, you can disable, but not destroy, some armored light vehicles, engine blocks, and wheels. But keep in mind the minigun does 0 damage to turrets. The enemy vehicle will always be able to bite back. Beyond penetration, the minigun generates unparalleled amounts of suppression and deadly fire support. It can suppress entire tree lines if needed. All in all, this is a flexible weapon capable of providing immense fire support, harassing logistics, and even can be used as a makeshift anti-air platform. Just try not to be caught out by enemy vehicles, as the minigun is mostly defenseless against anything with armor. In summary, the WPMC are a faction that relies on superior and versatile infantry kits, incredibly fast light vehicles, and CAS helicopters to win the day. The WPMC must use its superior speed and troop capacity to spread out all over the map and get in position before their enemy. It must also use its light vehicles and CAS helicopters to seek out and destroy enemy logistics. Furthermore, it should create and employ dedicated anti-tank squads that hunt down and destroy enemy armor to make up for their almost non-existent armor department. If the WPMC can leverage their superior speed and infantry, disrupt enemy logistics, and most importantly shut down enemy armor, then the WPMC will be victorious. However, if they fail in any number of these tasks, the WPMC will be facing an uphill battle. The WPMC will find itself at an advantage on small maps like Chora, where it can leverage its infantry advantages, as well as urban maps where the enemy cannot efficiently leverage their armor, and where the WPMC can in turn leverage their infantry. On large maps like Yehorivka and Gorodok, the situation is more complicated. On these large maps, the WPMC can more easily exploit their superior speed and mobility, but will also be more exposed to enemy vehicles. On maps like Tolil Outskirts, due to the open, largely flat terrain with little concealment and cover, the WPMC will be at a massive disadvantage. Regardless, victory will depend on how well the WPMC can exploit its advantages as mentioned in this guide, and conversely, how well they can shut down enemy armor. With that, it's time to see if you suck a little less with the WPMC. So strap on your knee pads, chug that Rip It, hop in mom's car, and try not to ram into friendlies. And once again, thank you to World of Tanks for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description now and dominate the battlefield. I hope to see you there. Money out. Before we go, a little bit of a channel update. Yeah, I know, this video is about 3 months late. In my defense, Hurricane Helene knocked out my internet for a month and a half, and then I was absolutely swamped with finals for school. But I'm back in force, so expect more videos in the near future. Secondly, would you guys be interested in a community Discord? If so, tell me in the comments below. A special thanks to 5foot Jake for his heli clips, and please check his channel out for more awesome flying and heli tutorials for squad. Alright, that's all I got for you. Merry belated Christmas and a Happy New Year's. And as always, thanks for watching.